Hello there and welcome to You Talking to Me. Today we focus on the role of the international lenders called the Troika, represented by the European Commission, the European Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And to discuss about that, I've got besides me Marisa Matias from the European United Left and Frank Engel, Christian Democrat from the European People's Party. Hello and welcome to you both.
Hello, thank you.
Hello, so the sun is there and earlier than expected, so spring and good days are coming soon, but this is not really shiny of the work of the Troika, and we will discuss about that, so especially about the social impacts of it. So, Mrs. Matias, what do you think? Do you think the EU should be better without the Troika?
I'm pretty sure of that, and I'm pretty sure. I know that it is, I want to say just one thing, it is quite important that the Troika evaluation is done. But the problem is that the policies which were taken by Troika, they were not really evaluated. And you were talking about the social impacts. That's something which is out of the report we are discussing. And in fact, the social impacts were destroying economies in Portugal, in Greece, in all the countries that there was intervention. It wouldn't be needed. There was a huge transfers from wages, from the welfare state to repositionate the profit of the financial system, but it would be better.
We will come back to the social impacts. And you, Mr. Engel, do you think the Troika is necessary?
I'm not a big lover of the Troika, I've never been.
Why?
Because I believe that a Europe that would be deserving of the name would have mechanisms of handling situations such as the ones that have now been addressed by the Troika that would not involve a haphazard coalition of institutions that in principle do not have much to do with each other but that are needed together in order to handle something like this. But without,
actually, they get out some countries
without the Troika, we would have had default in all countries concerned. And no matter which social consequences of Troika intervention that we're now talking about, default means the lights go out.
So what are the positive effects of the Troika? Tell me, for example, to explain to us.
The positive effect of the Troika is that the countries are still alive. And so is the currency that we share. And so are the acting possibilities of a European Union, which I hope is eventually going to move toward mechanisms of its own, which will make the Troika redundant and which will make us never need Troikas again. I'm not saying I want Troikas to be around forever. By the way, I would ideally want the problems to go away that made the Troika's intervention necessary in the first place. But I'm saying, little though I like the Troikas, I didn't see many alternatives to them.
So do you think the Troika is necessary in the shorter term, but at longer term?
The thing is that when we were confronting disorderly default of a number of member states of the European Union and of the Euro, we noticed that the European Union or the Eurozone did not have any other instruments at its disposal to handle this. It's true that the central bank belatedly but still came to the insight that if it only acted the way it now acts, it could have resolved a lot of those problems on its own. But that doesn't change anything of the fact that these countries were in desperate need of money and they wouldn't have gotten the money anywhere else. This is a simple fact and nothing is going to make it go away.
So do you think the country is still alive even with the Troika, especially, I mean, you are Portuguese, so what do you think? Portugal, Ireland, Cyprus, Greece,
all these countries have a promise of austerity for eternity. Even that the Troika goes away, the Troika is still there because the main problem is austerity. And austerity is going to stay with the fiscal compact, with a lot of other measures. I do agree that we have a problem with the Eurozone and the way it was created and didn't prevent the macroeconomic imbalances, didn't prevent the problems that the countries could face according to the fact that there were no instruments which could avoid these imbalances. I agree with that. But how can we say that the countries are still alive when, for instance, just to give the example of Portugal, when the Troika intervention started, the public debt was around 80% of the GDP. Now, 3 years after austerity, the huge increase in tax that we ever had in the history of democracy, the major reduction in salary, unemployment like we never had, the public debt is over 130%. So we don't need to be economists or mathematicians in order to understand that if countries were not in condition to go to the markets with 80% of public debt, they are not in conditions to go with 130%.
So do you think the Troika kills the democracy? You say that a few days ago.
Yes.
So
it kills the economy, it kills socially and economically speaking the countries, and it kills democracy because Troika are ad hoc commissions and there's no accountability of these ad hoc committees. There's no public transparency, there's no democratic control, neither for Troika nor for the instruments which were created. So it's a way of trying to define and to put into practice the most important decisions for people's lives without people involved. And that's not a way of doing it.
Mr. Engel, do you think the Troika needs more control, needs to be controlled to be more democratic?
No.
Do you think it's undemocratic?
No, they need to be abolished. That's to me very, very evident.
Abolished, completely.
Mechanisms like these are incompatible with the way in which I see member states of the European Union and indeed the European Union function. I'm not talking about Troika reform, I'm talking about Troika abolition. Very, very certainly.
That's a key
and the sooner we can get there, the better. But what they are now looking after needs to be looked after by somebody else afterwards. And
From whom, for example?
And this something needs looking after as well. I am absolutely aware that debt has risen, but debt has not risen because Troika policies have been implemented. Debt has risen because of a mechanical relation between recession and part of debt.
Try to give some examples because we.
Look, if you've had, like in Greece, because I know that our Portuguese friends tend to picture their situation in the most dramatical of all terms.
And you know Greece because you went there.
I know Greece and Portugal, and I know that if we have to look into deep drama, the Greek one is still better. I'm not saying this with any sort of pride or any sort of satisfaction, but
better, even with healthcare skirts, they don't have any more access to.
I know where we stand, but give me the humble Greek of 2003, who, without paying anything in excess to what Social Security called for, had decent access to a doctor. They didn't. And that's one of the problems that we're talking about.
Do you agree with that?
That's one of the
I
problems
don't agree, because
we're talking about the very simple fact that a number of states in the south of Europe didn't function properly before Troika interventions. I'm not saying they're now functioning better with Troika intervention, but I'm saying that what they've gone through has at least sharpened the sense that things need to change. When in Greece, Kostas Karamanlis, the last time he was prime minister, before 2009, tried to reform things, he stepped back 3 days after every single announcement because half the country was on the street mobilized by unions who said, never any reform. Now,
so the Troika doesn't need to be abolished then? What is the alternative?
The thing is, we need to come to the realization that you cannot indefinitely play with money you don't have. Greece can't, and no other country can. And because no country can, it's the simple thing. It's the very same thing as in every single household. If you get 5,000 euros in, which would be a lot in a number of places, and if you spend 10, then there are 5 missing. And these 5 can be missing for 2 months, but if they start to go missing for a generation, then you have a problem.
What do you think?
I think a lot of things, I even don't know where to start. First, yes, debt raised because of Troika and because of austerity
No, because
measures.
of recession.
No, because of austerity measures and of Troika. We had the major transference of private debt to the public accounts we have ever saw in our lives. And that was the result of these measures and of these particular policies. And also because we are paying interest rates because of the bailout, which are making a lot of profits to financial markets. We don't have the chance of having, for instance, the case of the European Central Bank lending directly to member states with the same costs which are applied to the commercial banking system. We don't have it. For the commercial systems, it's just the costs of the lending. For the countries which are under Troika bailout, the interest rates are profitable for a lot of people. We are paying a lot for that. We are paying more than 4% of interest rates, for instance, which means that if the country is in the recession and is not growing, we would need to be growing more than the percentage of the interest rates we are paying, and we are not doing that. So these recession measures, these are recessive measures which provoke more and more recession. And these are some just key examples why the debt is increasing. And it's because of these measures. And my colleague was talking that we are not talking about the Troika reforms, we are talking about Troika, so we can abolish Troika but not talking about the reforms. So we can avoid the problems and not discuss them. But that's not a way of dealing with it. It's like shooting the messenger, but keeping the policies as they are.
So what are the solutions then?
But there are a lot of solutions.
The national government
probably just overspending again until the next Troika comes along.
I'm not saying that.
No, but this is what the left says.
For God's sake, Troika, and I know it, in the case of the first memorandum, was just a continuation of the Stability and Growth Pacts, which were already recessive. So we had 1, 2, 3, we are about to have 4 Stability and Growth Pacts. The problem is in the policy, the austerity policy. But then it was reinforced with Troika, with the privatization of all the sectors. Why it is possible that some European countries continue to have energy and other fundamental sectors as national sectors, and for instance, but energy is a key case, and why can't the other countries
So
have
you
it?
mean that you focus on those countries? I mean, we let these
I
countries
think-
out?
I think there was a division.
Purely national decisions, by the way. So these are really things that mix it all up.
It's divergence.
We can Europeanly talk about things that Europe is in charge of, but who privatizes what, as a rule, is not a matter that Europe handles. I come from a place that has never even contemplated, for instance, of privatizing water supply. Others had privatized water supply before Europe first had the idea of even thinking that this might be something that might be recommended. So, sorry.
But you know that was in the memorandums.
We will come back to the social impact.
I know.
Sorry, we will come back to the social impact because it's the end
I know
of
that some countries negotiated better than others, and I certainly know that Portugal already negotiated a lot better than Greece, because Greece didn't even have the possibility to negotiate anything in the first place, and had everything imposed on
I just want to raise one.
Okay, last word, and then we will maybe end up.
You might have gotten a number of things out if you had negotiated better.
One issue.
Okay, what is the solution then? The alternative of the Troika, if we don't have to abolish it at all?
The solution would be to have an European Union, a solidarity European Union, and not a punishment one, a divergent one. And that's the problem. We are destroying the European project with this divergence, like my colleague said, because it's to say that the southern countries are based on lazy people, they need to be put in order, and the virtues live in the core of Europe and the northern countries of Europe. It's not true. I'm not saying that the policies which were running were the good ones. I never defended it.
Do you agree with that? Do you think the southern countries are lazy?
But just to finish, what I'm saying is that everyone knew that the euro would introduce imbalances. Some countries became deficitary and other countries excedentary. That's why the European budget should try to counterbalance these imbalances. And it was not what was put into practice. So we punish the weaker, but we do nothing with the stronger. And the treaties also have inscribed that the excedents could not go far away beyond something, and there is no sanctions for that.
So clearly, what is the solution?
The solution would be to deal with this as an European problem, because it is an European problem. It would be to let the European Central Bank lend directly to the member states and not using these instruments, because this is only promoting financial markets and speculation. It would be to have some kind of mutualization of the public debt. A lot of things could have been done and weren't done because there's
last word, and then we will finish because we're running out of time.
Mutualization of public debt has been something that I've been preaching for as long as I can think politically. and a European federal budget worthy of the name, with the transfers that could then be undertaken and that will be necessary, is also something that I've been preaching personally for as long as I can politically think. The only interesting thing about this is that, as a rule, this is a Christian democratic message. This is a message that has been opposed, radically opposed, by left and communist parties across the continent and continues to be so until this very day. The funny thing is, when things go bad, we suddenly realize that somebody else might be responsible for that, instead of looking where we've all failed ourselves. I have never said, and I will never say,
putting the mistakes
that people
of
in the south of the
other
continent are lazier than anybody else. I will never say
That's
anything
your last
like that.
word and your solution, your alternative to the
My
troika.
last word is, if we all manage to finally realize that once you share a currency, you have to share your lives.
And that's
In good and in bad times, we will be a lot further. But that means that national sovereignty is gone. And I wonder how long it will take for parties across the political spectrum, but especially on the radical left, since we're now in a confrontation between this and myself, until this realization comes through. I don't believe it happens tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. That was the last word. Sorry, but we have to end it up. So thank you.
One always has to break it off when it's most beautiful.
Come in our debates. That's the last word, of you, Mr. Engel. So, and thank you to all of us to follow us on Euranet Plus, and see you next week. Bye.